Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intentional Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Dalton. This is episode 286. We are in our season where we are talking about the spiritual art of work and life. And you know what needs a little bit of a spiritual art? Decision making. Decision making is something that so many people struggle with. And I knew I wanted to have a conversation where we dove into how to make better decisions, how you can feel better about the decisions you're making on a regular basis. And who better to have a conversation about decision making with than a futurist? My amazing friend, Regan Robinson, is on the show today. And we are going to be talking about how you can look at your future, how you can see and imagine all the different possibilities. Regan is a futurist. She's an advisor and an investor building an imaginarium. She empowers visionaries to create new possibilities for themselves, their companies, and even their communities. She has an incredible background. She's worked with companies and transformed companies like Vice Media, Edelman Digital. She's worked with companies like Viacom and Anheuser-Busch, helping them really synergize and make decisions about their future. So I knew we would have a great conversation today. In today's show, we're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to be talking about, let me look at my notes, how everyone has the ability to be a futurist. We're going to talk about getting the kaleidoscope view and what that means, what that looks like, how we oftentimes get caught up in being right rather than making the right decisions. And we're even going to talk about how a leaf changed America. Strange, but true. Shall we go ahead and get started? Let's go. There's a spiritual art to work and life. I'm not talking about sitting in silence on a mountaintop or chanting mantras for hours a day, but finding meaning in your work in everyday life can increase your productivity, boost your happiness, and yes, make you feel so much better about your days. I'm Tanya Dalton, a best-selling author, motivational speaker, seven-figure entrepreneur, and oh yeah, wife and mom. So I get it. I understand the stress of daily life. But as a productivity expert, I'm here to help you choose the extraordinary life. This season, we will be exploring work, parenting, personal growth, and more. Because when you choose to be intentional, every day can be filled with meaning. Let's create the world we want our daughters to live in. This is the Intentional Advantage. Regan, you and I had such an amazing conversation. I was in New York City. I had literally just given my Oxford talk, like 30 minutes before you and I got a chance to meet up. We had chatted before, but this was our first time to meet in person. And we met for lunch. And I think we sat at that table for like 3 hours.
We definitely did. I'm pretty sure I saw like two rounds of rotation of all the other diners. So.
I think so too. But we were having such a great conversation. And I felt like I walked away from that and it just, I don't know, I love these types of conversations, which is why I wanted to do a whole season just on conversations that you have with other people that shift you or change you or get you thinking. And I love the way that you think as a futurist. So I think we have to start with the really obvious question. What is a futurist?
Yes. So there are quite a few definitions, as you can probably imagine. So I'm just going to give you a simple one. So futurists explore predictions and possibilities about the future and how those possibilities might emerge from the present. So that's a very sort of simplistic version. There are many flavors of futurists. I like to think I'm a little bit different. I'm kind of an outlier, anomaly, if you will, misfit.
We're all misfits. So
yes, exactly. All right. Misfits unite, right? And so my brand of futurism is a little different because, as I shared with you over lunch, I'm probably one of the only futurists that is also obsessed with history. So while the starting point, or sort of I advocate for, instead of thinking present forward, you need to think future back. Part of the future back thinking, it really includes looking to the past for inspiration, because a lot of what we sort of talked about at lunch is like, actually, really what is new is technology. A lot of ideas or a lot of businesses or things in the past, that are reimagined in the present, what makes them different is technology. And so while a lot of futurists are focused and specialized in technology, for example, I'm sort of a generalist, meaning I sort of have my obsession topics along with my obsession with history. And I'm really looking at human needs and mindset shifts and behavior changes. And so that's what actually interests me more, is what's happening in that realm and how are human needs evolving, and then sort of kind of connecting the dots between that and what could be in the future, and sort of then also looking at the past to see what those wisdoms or those inspirations are.
Yeah. Well, I like too that you had said to me that you didn't even think of yourself as a futurist. You were just a person who is interested in the future, but you are obsessed with the past, as am I. Like anything historical, anything like historical fiction or documentaries, I am all about, because I think that there's so much mining we can do from our past to help us. And I even like that phrasing that you just said there, the possibilities, the predictions and the possibilities. Your future is not absolute and written for you. It's possibilities. And I think that word possibilities is so freeing, because possibilities means opportunities. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it, that you have all these possibilities spread before you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a part of what I do as a futurist, and in my work with founders and leaders, is really, it's all about anticipating what's coming, discovering new creative possibilities, which will enable you to thrive in the uncertain times that we live in and seize control of your own future. And so, as I think about, the name of this podcast, Intentional Advantage, I mean, that's exactly what this is about. It's about cultivating long-term strategic advantage and creating new possibilities.
I love it. I love it. Well, I think this is a thing. It's like that anticipation of the future. I think sometimes that's what holds people back. It's like this fear of what if, or the risk, or any of those things. But when you and I were chatting the other day, and we were talking about how the past is cyclical and things kind of reinvent, and everything that we think of as disruptive or like out there, brand new ideas, is just a new iteration of an old idea. And so you brought up, for example, Airbnb as being this huge disruptor. I had never thought about that. So I just would love for us to dive into that, because I think when we understand that our future is steeped in our past, and if we can acknowledge that, that fear of the future can dissipate. It can go away if we understand it's just a new iteration. It's a new innovation of who we are, not a totally different person, right? It's not like changing who you are. I like to say on purpose isn't changing who you are. It's rising up and becoming the best version of you. That's like one of the main quotes in my second book. But that's essentially what you're saying here too, in business, in life, in every aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I love the Airbnb example as well, because it just kind of, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was watching, I'm sharing with you like what a history nerd I am, and all the
Okay,
shows.
let me stop for a second and say that Regan is probably like the most well-read, like you immerse yourself in, like, I mentioned a documentary, you're like, oh yeah, I watched that. I mentioned a book, you're like, oh yeah, I've read that book. I mean, you read so many articles and books. And so, yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, just had to throw that out there.
Yeah, I have been told that before. So yeah, I'm quite a voracious reader and consumer of everything. And so I was watching one of my favorite History Channel series, The Future of Blank. So the future of food, which I was actually just watching an episode last night and thinking of you. And, and I tend to get obsessed around certain time periods or certain things. And so I was watching one of these shows around the cereal wars between Dr. Kellogg and CW Post. So Kellogg and Post cereal. And that's, set in the 1800s. And it was talking about how Dr. Kellogg, it was called a sanatorium, which was really his sort of wellness center. CJ Post was a patient. And CJ Post was actually staying in a boarding house and with other boarders, and that's the way he was sort of doing sort of the lower cost version instead of like actually staying at the sanatorium. And it like suddenly hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's right. Like, let's remember that, boarding, renting rooms to strangers was very common in the 1800s or early 1900s. I mean, I'm not sure at what point it went away. I don't know, maybe the 40s. I'm not sure.
I guess
about
technically with Airbnb, it hasn't gone away. It's come back, right? I think that's crazy. Like if you said I run a boarding house, people would be like, "What?" Like record skips. I'm sorry, what did you just say?
Yeah, it actually sounds like a little kind
Airbnb
of like
is.
vice. Like
yeah, boarding house with tech combined Airbnb.
Exactly.
I felt like my mind was blown when you were like, and I think this is true of so many things. We think it's like this whole different thing, right? And I think this is maybe the trap we fall into when it comes to making decisions about ourselves or decisions about our businesses is we feel it has to be something that's totally split from who we are now. That who we are now is like something we need to just get away from and totally go be something different. But I love that. And the boarding house is such a great example of that, where it's just like this, you bring in a couple of new, interesting things and it totally shifts it. Absolutely. And changes the trajectory.
Absolutely. Well, I always say it's about imagining the future, imagining what could be, imagining the possibilities. Imagine being the operative word, because first of all, everybody has the ability to imagine. It's one of the few abilities that every person on this earth is actually born with. And imagination is the ability to create what does not exist today. But that doesn't have to mean it's the creation of something that nobody else can wrap their minds around. Now, granted, there are visionaries who have done that. Thomas Edison, electricity, that was just like, what? People could not wrap their minds around that. So he actually had to create the entire delivery system around electricity in order to bring it to market. That is one form of imagination, but imagination is also about taking disparate, unconnected pieces of information, ideas, and connecting them and reassembling them, building relationships among them in new and different ways. And so that's why one of my favorite tricks is looking to the past, because there are great, that's why I love, listening to the Business Wars podcast and watching the history of documentaries, or even any historical documentary around business, or even beyond, around movements, those are all things that I look to and apply to my work, or as I'm working with founders and C-suite executives around what could be the future of their company. There's so much that we can kind of mine and reinterpret and connect and take little bits and pieces to paint or sketch an entirely different picture.
Yeah, it's funny because you're totally reminding me of how when I closed my first business and I knew I didn't want to do the first business anymore because it wasn't lighting me up. I wasn't really passionate about it. I started it as a side hobby for $50, grew it to absorb my husband's MBA income. And I wasn't like, ooh, I love what I'm doing. It wasn't making an impact that I wanted to make. And when I dove into my past and I started thinking about what are the things I'm passionate about, what are the things I think are part of my purpose, there was empowering women, because I love doing business consulting and coaching, especially for women. Teaching, because I used to teach in a classroom, once a teacher, always a teacher, and productivity. So 3 very separate things. And I like to say Inkwell Press Productivity Co. was like this little thread that connected these 3 distinct parts of me and became something new. So I totally resonate with what you're saying there.
Yeah, because it's through your lens and your interpretation, right? Because that's also an important piece around what I do. And, and as I start to help other people shift how they view the future, and, part of where it starts. So I have a framework that I call the kaleidoscope view, which is my unique way of how I see the future. And every time you click the kaleidoscope, imagine those little pieces that are getting moved around, and you just kind of, and every time you click the kaleidoscope, you're seeing something a little different. And one critical piece to it, and this is where I'm a little different perhaps than another futurist, is my provocation is there is no future that is objective, it's subjective. There's no strategy that is objective, it is subjective, because it's most powerful when it comes from what is calling you. So your intention.
I like that. I like that a lot, because it really does come down to the choices that we're making. Choosing, first of all, choosing to see the possibilities by imagining them, like you said,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But choosing to see them, and then that's a lot of agency, a lot of ownership, which we've definitely talked about on this podcast numerous times, by the way, because it is so important to have that agency and that ownership. So I think that's really interesting, what's calling to you. I love that, because so often we have this inkling, we have this idea, like deep inside, there's this little seed in us that's like, ooh, what if I did this? And then we let the future scare us out of it. We let the unknown or the uncertainty, rather than the possibility,
Right,
push us away from it, because we think, oh, who am I to do that? Or I can't do that. Or this is too big of a decision, right? And we just kind of like sweep it off the table. Don't you think?
right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple things bubbled up for me when you were just talking. It's like, so part of it is fear, right? And a lot of the work that I do, I mean, I didn't ever anticipate this, is it is around transformation and mindset shift thinking. It just so happens that I have personally, through coaching, psychotherapy, and a lot of stuff that I've spent 6 years really reimagining and reinventing and rewiring who I am, that I actually happen to have sort of these skills and experience built in. But I mean, if someone would have said to me 5 years ago, like, I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I'm a strategist. Like, what? And I do innovation. Like, what are you talking about? Because I recognize that there is a human aspect of this, where it really is about letting go and addressing the fear and ego. Ego can be a part of it as well, because we want to be right. And what I tell people is, listen, you have to let go of this is about the answer, the solution, or being right. And there is no one future. So you have to envision multiple futures. But I can tell you, and research backs this up, by actually investing the time and energy into articulating what it is, what the possibilities could be, what it is that you see. So this goes back to what's calling you. And there's a few other filters that I apply. You are going to be in a much better position than someone who, or another company who is just, focused on the present and on the day-to-day, because we know that the world now moves at a pace. I mean, it's never going to go back to how it used to be, right? Like,
no, never. Do we want it to? Do we even want it to go back to how it operated before? I don't think we do. I think the fact that it's evolved and changed, that's a good thing. Just like how we evolve and change is a good thing. It's just hard when you're evolving and growing. It's often uncomfortable.
It is. It's again, that's why I like sort of, coming to terms with or embracing this unknown. And there are also all kinds of biases and things. Our brain is actually playing tricks on us. I call it lizard brain. So there's all kinds of things that get in the way of being future minded. So don't feel too bad, everybody. But it actually does take self-awareness too, of sort of what perhaps is holding you back or what's getting in the way. But I do think that starting from a self-aware place of really what's calling you, because there are also sort of media narratives like, oh, I have to do this. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with someone who I'm trying to help them, ensure that their company is future fit. And they're like, oh, well, I'm really starting to realize that that's not aligned with maybe why I started this, or what's calling me now, and they're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
wow. So I got so caught up in all of this that it's actually not aligned, or I'm not aligned with, another person in the company or whatever it is. I mean, it happens, I'd say 80% of the time of people that I work with, they're like, oh, okay, I have to get quiet for a minute here and really
Yeah.
start from here and figure it out at this level. Because if it's not clear at this level, it's certainly not going to be clear at any other levels.
No, that's the thing is when you have that clarity of the vision of where you want to go, that's what helps you back up into making the better decisions. It's understanding the long term to decide the short term. And I think what we get caught up in is just looking down at our to-do list and saying, this is what I have to do today. And a lot of times it's like, do you really? Is that really tied to where you want to go? We're so busy asking what do I have to do? We're not asking where is it I'm going? And then going back to that word you just used about that intentionality, right? Really making sure that you're choosing. Are you choosing to do things each and every day that get you closer to that vision, that drive you forward? I think that's really what a lot of times we get caught up in is we're so busy digging out of the hole in the middle of a sandstorm. And the sandstorm is continuing to fill up that hole. And so no wonder we're just like chasing our tails, being busy, worrying about what we have to do today instead of where the hell am I going? And I want you to ask that question more often. Where am I going? And do I even like it? Do I like where I'm going? Is it calling to me? Is that calling to me? I think that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, and I think also part of it is getting comfortable with knowing that it could unfold in any way. So I'll use myself as an example. A lot of people think I am crazy when I tell them, well, my vision, I love how you're laughing. Yeah.
Well, like what you just said, a lot of people think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Little pause there. I was like, is there going to be more to this? Or are we just saying you're crazy?
I will say I'm a mad scientist, and I hear that a lot as well. But
that's what I love about you, though.
A lot of people look at me like, what? Because I like to say my vision is to provide alternative pathways to build, fund, and grow companies and ultimately reduce the incidence of cancer and chronic disease. All right. People are like, whoa, what do you, and I explain to them that, listen, I don't know exactly how I'm going to get to that outcome. And I'm okay with it because part of it is yes, I've worked back and I have sort of, arcs of how I sense the future will unfold and how I can play a role in that future and what I'm trying to do, how that will play a role in the future. But I've also let go of exactly how it's going to come to pass, because then that leaves you open to being more dynamic and evolving as everything around you is constantly changing, which isn't ever going to change. So I think that's really important as well. And so when I say people think I'm crazy, they're like,
we're obsessed with control. We want to control all the outcomes. We want to control. And I think this is one of the things too that holds us back with decision making is that we worry about that. Like, am I going to be able to control this? The truth is a lot of the big outcomes in your life have not happened because of the big giant leaps, the big decisions you've made. It's the itty bitty tiny ones. I just heard a story and I was saving this for you because I was like, oh, Regan's going to like this. I heard this story about how a leaf changed America. So there was a leaf in California that fell off a tree years and years and years ago, fell off the tree, and a caterpillar was going along the ground, got to the leaf, couldn't go through it because the leaf was blocking its path. So it climbed up the back of a park bench, of a park bench and down onto the seat of the park bench. And along came a young man on his lunch break who came and sat on the park bench, squashing the caterpillar. And of course, he reached his hand back there and was like, oh, there's a caterpillar smashed on my pants. I can't go back to work. So he had to rush home. He only had one other pair of pants. So he rushes home, changes his pants, and has to take his pants that the caterpillar's on to the cleaners. Goes to the cleaners, and the owner's daughter happens to be working the desk. And he meets her, has this great conversation. They agree to go out to dinner. So they go out to dinner, start dating, fall in love, get married, have a baby. And that baby grows up to be a well-read man who eventually became President Richard Nixon.
Oh, wow.
President Richard Nixon is here because of right? Because of a leaf falling from a tree. And of course, we all know President Nixon, that totally changed a lot of how we do politics in America and everything else from a leaf. So let go of needing to control all the big decisions and recognize that some things in the universe are out of our control, and it's okay. I love how you talk about that. Like it's a beautiful thing because it leaves you open to the possibilities.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
love that.
being, it's about having a beginner's mind, it's about, really, I mean, I'm constantly put horseback riding as an example of something that I just picked back up after not doing for 25 years because I was like, I wonder what's going to happen. I'm going to give it a whirl. And I'll tell you, like, not when I'm on the horse, because I'm really focused on riding, but on the drive upstate and on the drive back, my mind is like just teeming with all kinds of ideas because I've gotten myself a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I'm doing something new. I'm in nature, like all of these different things. And my mind just it's just like sparking on all of these ideas, or I'm connecting dots. Again, this is where imagination comes in because I am in a rest and digest state. So your parasympathetic nervous system. And so I think that, really, being intentional about doing those types of things is really important as well. And I mean, there is a method to the madness. I mean, it's, by actually taking the time to start to explore what could be, it actually it is going to lower your anxiety level because at least you've gotten some things out on the table, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just, burying your head in the sand and like pretending, all of this stuff isn't happening, by actually taking some time and exploring and hopefully playing and having some fun with it. Like you'd be surprised what you learn. I always tell people you're actually going to get more clarity. So I actually, again, in terms of getting outside your comfort zone, I force people to go really big to the point where they're like, whoa, like now you've overwhelmed me with all the possibilities, all of sort of the sources of disruption and change. But then after a couple weeks, they tend to come back to me and they're like, all right, you really pushed me. And I really wasn't seeing, like, I was overwhelmed and I wasn't seeing like how it was all relevant. But now that I've had time to sort of marinate and reflect, at least everything has gotten out on the table so I can let those things, either let them go because maybe
Yeah.
it isn't as relevant, or or it goes in a parking lot, or, oh no, this is something that I actually wasn't even thinking about that could impact my future or my business. And now I'm empowered because, knowledge
Yes.
is power, right?
Totally. Well, it's letting the monsters out of your brain and putting them into light, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when they're scary, when it's in the middle of the night and it's dark and you're thinking of all the things that could be, what if, and we ruminate on these things. I love that idea of you just put them all on the table, bring them to light. The monsters aren't nearly as scary. You just realize, oh, that's just a possibility. There's all these other ones. So laying all that out, that is such a great tip because I think making decisions is difficult for a lot of people, but that idea of
Mm-hmm.
just go, let yourself imagine the possibilities. Like Regan said, imagine the possibilities, lay them all on the table and take a good look. I love that. Regan, we are unfortunately out of time because you and I know we had a 3-hour
Yeah,
conversation just like a
right.
week and a half ago.
Based on experience tells us.
Yeah, we better cut this off. But please let everyone know, where's the best place to connect with you, learn more about you.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, just at or Regan Robinson. I'm pretty easy to find. So check me out
Perfect.
there. You can send me a DM.
And I'll have the link to that in my show notes as well. Regan, thanks so much for letting us have this conversation recorded. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Fun as always.
When I tell you that Regan and I could have sat here and talked for hours on hours, I mean it because she and I have done that in the past. She's just an amazing wealth of knowledge. And the way that she looks at the future, I think is fascinating. So we talked about things today like predictions and possibilities. And I want you to think about that. When she talked about that idea of imagining the possibilities, think about how that opens up your entire mindset of what that could possibly look like. I think so often when it comes to making decisions, we get really myopic. We get really nervous about what this is going to do and how we can control it and how we're going to get there. And instead, what if we chose to just imagine the possibilities and really diving into who we are, looking at that past to help us move forward into the future? You've heard me say before on this podcast and in my books, we have to look backwards in order to move forwards. And I love how Regan really takes that principle and applies it in not just our personal life, but also in our businesses, really looking at what those opportunities look like. I think when we shift our thinking into looking at the future as an opportunity, that changes everything. It changes everything. Because here's the question you can start asking yourself. If you're feeling really stymied, if you're feeling stuck and you're not sure what kind of decision you want to make, the question I want you to ask yourself is, what if I don't make the decision? What does that look like? That's a really easy future to predict because all we have to do is look at that path of where you've been. And if you continue doing the same thing tomorrow, as you've done yesterday and the day before and the day before that, your future is going to look the same as it did yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So if you're ready for a change, if you're ready for a shift, do that exercise that Regan talked about, putting all those different possibilities on the table. And yes, even the frightening ones, even the ones that scare you just a little bit or a lot bit. Take the monsters out of your brain, set them out, bring them to light. That makes everything so much easier. If you're looking for ways to overcome some of that fear, I have several podcast episodes about fear. I'll put those in the show notes where we talk about looking at that and becoming, we don't want to be risk adverse, but we want to be risk educated. We want to be really smart with our decision making. Because truly, when you move forward, when you choose your actions of today with tomorrow in mind, when you become a futurist in your own life, that's when you've got the intentional advantage. Ready to take action on what we talked about on today's episode? The easiest way to get started is my free Take 5 challenge. 5 minutes a day for 5 days. That's it. And yet it will boost your productivity and double your happiness. I can promise you. Thousands have taken the challenge. Go to tanyadalton.com/take5 to join or click the link in the episode notes. And don't forget to follow The Intentional Advantage on your podcast player so you don't miss an episode.